I never believed the stories about the swamps of Australia. Old tales whispered about something lurking beneath the murky waters, an ancient beast locals called the bunyip. They said it wasn't an animal, not in the sense we understand. It was something older, a presence that had existed in the rivers and wetlands long before settlers arrived. But one night, standing at the edge of a reedy billabong, I learned that some legends refused to stay buried. The air was thick with insects, their high-pitched buzzing creating a chorus that pressed against my ears. The moon hung low, swollen and yellow, spilling light over the surface of the water. I had gone out there with nothing but a lantern and curiosity, chasing the story like a fool. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural bellow, unlike anything I had ever heard before. It wasn't the croak of a frog, nor the cry of a bird. It sounded ancient. The sound rolled across the water, vibrating in my chest. I froze, my lantern trembled in my grip, casting flickering light across the reeds. For a moment, I thought I saw something move, a shadow slipping just below the surface, long and sinuous, rippling the black water. The locals had described it differently each time. Some said it had the head of a dog, others the face of a crocodile, some even spoke of horns and tusks. Nobody could agree on what it looked like, only that it was real. The bellow came again, louder this time, closer. The reeds to my left rustled as though something enormous had brushed against them. I stepped back, my boots sinking into the damp soil, and suddenly felt the terrifying weight of silence. The insects had stopped. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. I lifted the lantern higher, my eyes darting across the still water. Then, just beyond the reeds, I saw the glistening eyes rise above the surface. Large and blinking, reflecting the moonlight like polished stones. The swamp felt alive, holding its breath with me. My heart slammed in my chest. I should have run, but my legs refused to move. The eyes sank back beneath the water without a ripple, and the silence deepened, pressing in like a suffocating blanket. I knew then what the old people meant when they said the bunyip didn't just kill. It waited. It watched. It studied you, deciding if you belonged in its world or not. And at that moment, standing knee-deep in shadows and fear, I realized it had chosen me. I backed away from the water's edge, forcing myself to breathe quietly. Every step I took seemed deafening, the suction of mud pulling at my boots, the reeds snapping underfoot. I kept the lantern high, its trembling flame my only shield against the blackness. Then came the sound again. Not the bellow this time, something worse, a wet, dragging noise, as if claws were raking across stone or a massive body was sliding against the muddy bank. I swung the light toward the reeds. For a fraction of a second I saw it, something slick and dark, scales glistening, rising from the water. It was massive. Its shoulders, if that's what they were, breached the surface, sending ripples that slapped against the shore. The flame flickered, sputtering as though the air itself was being pulled away. I stumbled back, nearly falling, when the sound hit me again, this time a scream. High-pitched, unnatural, like a woman's wail mixed with the roar of a bull. The cry echoed across the swamp, bouncing from tree to tree, until it felt like it came from everywhere at once. The lantern slipped in my sweaty hand, and for a heartbeat I stood in near darkness. That was when I felt at the ground beneath me vibrating, as though something enormous was moving below. The old stories came rushing back, children who had wandered too close to the riverbanks, hunters who never returned, livestock found with strange wounds. The bunyip wasn't just a beast, it was a predator of silence, one that struck when fear already had you in its grasp. The reeds parted, something long and thin, almost like a limb, stretched forward. It wasn't quite an arm, nor a fin, nor anything I recognized. It shimmered wet in the lantern's glow before retreating with a hiss. I knew then it was toying with me, testing me. I turned and ran, Branches clawed at my arms, roots snagged my feet, and still the sound followed me, the bellow, the scream, the dragging scrape. Every step I took, it seemed closer, as though the swamp itself carried it forward. By the time I burst onto firmer ground, gasping, I swore I could feel its breath at my neck. Hot, foul, rotten. I spun, lantern raised, only to find nothing but stillness. The reeds swayed softly, the water lay calm, and the night insects had returned, chirping as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. I hadn't escaped the Bunyip. It had let me go. I stumbled back into the township just before dawn, lantern sputtering low, rifle still clenched in my shaking hands. My boots were caked in swamp mud, my clothes damp with night air. I looked like a man who had seen a ghost, but ghosts don't leave ripples in the water, don't scream like dying things, don't breathe down your neck. The pub's door creaked as I pushed inside. A few early risers turned their heads. Farmers, stockmen, a couple of old drovers, their eyes landed on me, and silence fell. I knew how I looked, pale, hollow, wild-eyed. "What happened to you?" someone muttered. I tried to explain. My words tumbled out about the dragging sound, the scream, the thing rising from the water. But the more I spoke, the more their expressions shifted. Some smirked, others frowned. One man spat into the sawdust. "Been hittin' the bottle too hard, mate." But not everyone laughed. In the corner, old Thomas, an elder whose family had lived near the Murray River longer than anyone, just watched me. His eyes didn't hold disbelief, they held recognition. When the others drifted out, he finally spoke. "You went to the billabong, didn't you?" His voice was rough, cracked with age. I nodded. He leaned forward. "That place isn't just water, it's a door. And you heard what comes through when the night is still." I swallowed hard. "You mean the Bunyip?" He didn't flinch at the name. Instead, he told me what his father told him, and his father before that. That the Bunyip wasn't a single creature, but many. Ancient guardians or hunters, depending on who you asked. Some said they punished those who disrespected the land. Others believed they were remnants of something older than man, spirits wearing flesh, bound to waterholes and rivers. "Some you hear," Thomas said, "before, you see. The cry is their warning. If you run, you might live. If you linger." He shook his head. I remembered the scream, that terrible, piercing cry that seemed to come from everywhere. "Why me?" I asked. His eyes narrowed. "Maybe it chose you, or maybe you chose wrong when you stepped into its place." For days I tried to push the encounter from my mind. I worked the farm, mended fences, pretended nothing had happened. But the swamp was always there, not far from the fields, whispering with every rustle of reeds. Then came the night I heard it again from my own porch. A low bellow, faint but undeniable, rolling through the night air. My animals stirred in terror, the dog howled, then fell silent. And in the distance I swore I saw lantern light moving where no man should be, along the swamp's edge. But I hadn't gone back there. Someone else had. The swamp was silent, too silent. Even the insects that had been buzzing all night had disappeared, as if the air itself held its breath. My flashlight flickered, and for a brief second I thought I saw ripples spreading across the black water. Then it rose. Two glowing yellow eyes pierced through the darkness, hovering above the surface of the swamp like lanterns from another world. The water parted, and slowly, monstrously, a figure emerged. Its skin glistened, slick with slime and tangled weeds. Its massive jaw opened, revealing teeth not meant for any natural creature, jagged and sharp, as if broken shards of bone had fused together to form a weapon. The Bunyip. I froze, my body refused to move. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet my legs were rooted to the muddy ground. The swamp seemed to sink deeper beneath me, as though the earth itself wanted to drag me down into the creature's domain. The monster stepped forward, each movement sending waves across the still water. Its eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time in my life, I felt what it truly meant to be prey. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of lunging, instead of tearing me apart, the bunyip tilted its head, almost curiously. A low rumble echoed from its chest, not quite a growl, not quite a voice, but something in between. The sound grew clearer, almost forming words, though none I could fully understand. It was as if the creature was offering me something, a warning, or perhaps a bargain. I raised my trembling hand, uncertain whether to ward it off or accept the unspoken invitation. The world around me narrowed to the glowing eyes, the gaping maw, the terrible stillness between us. And then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing on the edge of the swamp, the water perfectly calm, as if nothing had ever stirred it. The bunyip was gone. But deep down, I knew the encounter was not finished. It never would be. Because once you've looked into the eyes of the bunyip, it never lets you go. If this story sent a chill down your spine, don't let the mystery end here. Smash that like button to show your courage, drop a comment with what you think the bunyip was trying to say, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next terrifying legend. Because remember, some monsters don't just live in the swamp, they live in your imagination. And once they're there, they never leave.